Let's talk to the essay to the Vice President on economic matters. What's your response to what he's just made?
Thank you very much. I think, first of all, there is no doubt that facts matter, but those facts inform policy. So the first thing you do when you are confronted with the facts he has given is to have a clarity of vision and a clarity of direction. Now, did this government have a clarity of vision and a clarity of direction? Of course it did. Clearly, for the first time, you were told we're going to work on security, we're going to work on anti-corruption, and we're going to work on the economy. I'll put security and anti-corruption to the side for now and talk about the economy. You have a clear plan, not a vision, a plan that states that we're going to try and achieve these things in the next 4 years. And we're building that on the pillars of investing in the people, improving the macroeconomic condition, and building a competitive economy with 1 plus 4 execution priorities. You judge performance on those terms. Now, I urge you to go and look at the economic recovery and growth plan and tell me to what extent the 60 points that have been put into that plan have been implemented or not implemented. So I start with the macroeconomic indicators. The macroeconomic indicators were to restore growth. Growth, as Mr. Rewane has already said, was already declining. And to put it in perspective, we had a growth of 6.2% in 2014. By the second quarter of 2015, it had fallen to 2.1%. Facts do not lie. So the first challenge was to say, how do we get back on the trajectory of growth, as the Honorable Minister has said?
Dr. Obieze-Kwesili, you heard about the ERGP project. What do you make of the vision?
I think my initial comment, my comment when it was worked on was that it was generally in the right direction, but picking up from where the economic advisors stopped, we should ask ourselves, was recession inevitable? Was it inevitable? It wasn't inevitable. I maintain and I put the feet of the government to the fire on this.
Let him, he has a response.
I'll let you respond.
But I haven't finished talking.
But you've made an assertion.
You've got to let me finish. You know? So what happened was that the oil shock already affected us. But we deepened the acuteness of what came upon us by just taking the wrong measure. And one key wrong measure that we took, which Besmark knows kills economies, is to send confusing signals on an important pricing mechanism, our exchange policy. That was disastrous. What our exchange policy did was simply to say to the markets that we were reversing what had become predictably known as our capacity to adjust in a flexible manner of managed floating exchange policy to the allocation of very scarce, productive commodity, the exchange, for productivity. When that happened,
yes,
we lost a lot. Inflation unraveled, the exchange rate disparity and multiple exchange rates distorted incentives in this economy. The fiscal side of government suffered because we were selling our exchange at a cost and at a price that was totally making us lose the benefit of more or less we were doing devaluation,
Let's quickly get
but not doing devaluation.
Dr. Dikpolo Adeyemi. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to respond to the question of, was recession inevitable? Quite frankly, I think they say the only things that are inevitable in life are death and taxes. But to take it seriously, we sort of sometimes live in a national cocoon. Ask yourself the question, in 2015 to 2017, was Nigeria the only country in recession? I say no. Russia was in recession. Brazil was in recession. South Africa was in recession. Egypt was in recession. And we make it look as if Nigeria is this island on Mars that is immune to global influences. That's the first thing. The second thing is that that recession was triggered mainly by the fact that we lost over half of our oil production through our domestic political issues. So even at the time when oil prices began to rise, we had lost a lot of production already, and that took the base out of the situation.
Let's quickly get the thoughts of the Minister of Trade and Investment, especially on the comments made by Dr. Ezekwesili, and also over the years we've seen the Naira depreciate against the dollar. What must we do as a people to strengthen it? Because I believe it also affects, the sector that you're heading.
Absolutely. I think I would say two things. First is, as it relates to the foreign exchange issue, you have to deal with it both in terms of the short term and the long term. Short term, at the time where the situation we were dealing with at that time, was a very serious one. There was an acute shortage of foreign exchange, and therefore there had to be a response. And that response initially was around trying to ensure that the management of the demand for foreign exchange focused on the priorities of the country in terms of what the central bank was doing. Eventually, that was then moved on to creating a market mechanism, which is what she's talking about, that has actually addressed that problem. Fortunately, he also was working in tandem with other policies that were more long-term, because the fundamental issue is that you can't have a situation where you depend on just oil for your foreign exchange, and where you just go up and down as oil prices go up and down. Therefore, we are basically pursuing a diversification agenda that is increasing the sources for foreign exchange, that is increasing local production. I think the first thing that has to be accepted, and I think this is what Dr. Dikbolu was trying to say, is that the strategy, the plan is a sound one. And I haven't met anybody that said the plan is wrong. Some people have said implement it better, implement it faster. Some people have said they're working very hard. The important thing is that Rome is not built in a day. That process has to continue. The numbers that have just come out, which is actually what I thought we'll be discussing, are very compelling. And those numbers show a strong trend of recovery, and we actually need to understand that. The reason you need to understand that is that if you have a formula that is working, you do more of it. But if you don't understand it and you're in denial, then you might even stop something that is working and then try something else that will fail. The question is, if you look at the foreign exchange reserves, if you look at the economy, the things are headed in the right direction. So my view is that I agree that we need more sustained and better implementation going forward. But I hope that that's the kind of discussion we'll have.
So work in progress, Professor Thomas.
When you make mistakes, you must be man enough to accept your mistakes. The policies were wrong-headed. They were wrong-headed at that time. If we admit that we made mistakes and we are correcting, we are adjusting, then we can make. When you make the right choices and you have a clear vision and you communicate where you are going appropriately, then you will get the appropriate response. We made mistakes, and we must accept those mistakes.
I'm not sure what the difference is. First of all, let's be very clear. The point I made, which seems to be supported by Dr. Pat, is that if you have a formula that is working, people make mistakes all the time. I'm sure you know about the growth mindset and fixed mindset. Accepting mistakes is elementary psychology. So nobody's arguing with that.
Let's hear from the public.
So the main point is that if you have something that is working, then you go with it.